The wind howled, a fierce icy song against the glass panes of the great vaulted dome. It wasn't the festive gentle snowfall of Christmas cards, but a brutal whiteout, the kind that swallows sound and logic. Inside, the air was thick, humid, and alive, with the scent of damp earth and blooming night jasmine. The contrast was immediate and total. Sighs and thorns staggered through the last set of swinging doors, shedding a sheet of melting snow onto the terracotta floor. He looked like a creature of the outside world, sleek, dark, and utterly out of place. His bespoke overcoat was soaked, and the expensive leather gloves he pulled off did little to warm the chill in his bones. He was supposed to be 1,000 miles away, closing a major acquisition, not sheltering in a forgotten coastal town that didn't even register on his private jet's usual flight path. His private helicopter, grounded by the meteorological anomaly that had struck with brutal speed, was now a useless, icy sculpture a quarter-mile away. The pilot had managed to get him to this strange, heated glass structure before the visibility dropped to zero. "Is anyone here?" His voice, usually sharp and commanding, was muted and hollow in the vast space. A gentle voice answered from behind a curtain of hanging moss. "Yes, hello." "Good heavens, you look frozen. Come closer to the furnace room. It's warmer back here." Cassian followed the sound, past towering palms and unfamiliar glossy leaves, until he reached a small, cluttered work area tucked beneath a massive fig tree. A woman was hunched over a workbench, meticulously potting tiny succulents. She straightened up, wiping a smear of soil from her cheek with the back of a hand that was calloused but elegant. She was not what Cassian expected. He was accustomed to receptionists in designer suits and assistants who mirrored his own hyper-efficient energy. This woman, Eliza Finch, wore a faded denim apron over a thick woolen sweater, and her hands were deep in the earth. Her eyes were the color of moss after rain soft. True Greenand, they regarded him with an open, genuine concern that felt like a physical warmth. "The storm came out of nowhere," she said, gesturing toward a chipped ceramic mug on a shelf. "Are you a local?" "I haven't seen you before." Cassian hesitated, the instinct to present his credentials, his name, his company's valuation, his power already rising in his throat. He crushed it. "I'm just passing through. My transport ran into trouble." "I'm Cassian," he said, omitting the last name, the title, the fortune. "Thank you for letting me in. I can see this is a private place." "It's the Finch Conservatory," Eliza replied, smiling easily. "It's quiet, but it's far from private. It's open to anyone who needs a little green peace. Especially on a night like the Winter Solstice. It feels like the whole world is holding its breath." Lisa poured him a mug of strong herbal tea that smelled faintly of cinnamon and ginger. As he sipped it, the frantic tension that usually gripped his shoulders began to dissipate. He looked around. The conservatory was a magnificent, if slightly neglected structure. The glass panels were old, some patched with tape. But the plants inside, ferns, orchids, and countless other species, thrived in magnificent, wild abundance. It was a living, breathing cathedral. "It's incredible," Cassian murmured, genuinely impressed. "You keep this all going yourself?" A shadow crossed Eliza's face, a flicker of worry that disappeared quickly. "Mostly, it's my grandfather's legacy. And before that, his father's. We call it the Quiet Grove. It requires a lot of love, and sometimes a little more money than I have. I open it for private tours and sell cuttings to try to keep up with the repairs." She gestured to a small hand-painted donation box near the entrance. "We're having a tough year." Cassian, who routinely moved 9-figure sums with a few taps on a screen, felt a strange, cold knot of responsibility tighten in his stomach. Her tough year was likely equivalent to what he spent on coffee in a month. They talked for hours as the storm raged. Eliza spoke of the rhythm of the plants, the patient waiting for a bloom, and the deep satisfaction of working with the earth. She didn't know what a hostile takeover was, or the difference between preferred and common stock. She talked about the difference between a rare blue poppy and an endangered ghost orchid. "People forget that nature is the most relentless thing there is," Eliza said, leaning back against the bench, her eyes shining in the soft, diffused light of the emergency lanterns. It adapts. It survives. It finds a way to flower even after the darkest winter. But it needs protection too. Our whole world is built on things that are quiet, fragile, and essential. Cassian, the master of building digital empires and manipulating markets, found himself fascinated. He had spent his life chasing things that were loud, aggressive, and profitable. He knew the names of CEOs and politicians, but he couldn't name the plant whose elegant white bloom was unfurling slowly just a few feet away. I spend my life in steel and glass towers, Cassian confessed, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. I build things that exist only in code. I don't know what real patience is. Then you've missed the best part, Eliza said softly. Patience is watching a seed turn into a forest. It's the truest kind of hope. As the night deepened, the atmosphere grew intimate, cocooned by the glass dome and the relentless storm. Eliza insisted he take the worn, but clean cat she kept in the potting shed for long nights. She brewed him a second cup of tea, and as she stood over him, their eyes met. There was no artifice, no calculation in her gaze-only kindness, and a genuine interest in the man beneath the expensive coat. Eliza was beautiful, not in the polished, expensive way of the women in his social circle, but with a vibrant, earthy beauty that seemed to radiate from within. It wasn't a look, but a state of being. Thank you, Eliza, Cassian said, his voice husky. I don't know why, but I haven't felt this. Quiet. In years, the quiet grove has a way of doing that, she murmured. She gave him a blanket, wished him a restful night, and then disappeared back into the shadows of the dome, leaving him alone with the gentle drip of condensation and the secret, silent growth of the plant's sign lay there for a long time. Listening to the wind and the life around him, he was a billionaire accustomed to every luxury, yet he felt more content on this simple cot, surrounded by exotic leaves and humid air, than he had in his penthouse suite overlooking Central Park. He thought about the financial trouble she mentioned. It would take him literally 5 seconds to wire enough money to save her conservatory for a decade. The thought brought a surge of proprietary warmth. He could be her hero. He could make this connection last. But then he remembered the ruthless world he would drag her into. The endless press, the calculating stares, the way his fortune would instantly transform her pure passion into a spectacle. He closed his eyes, sensing the fragility of the quiet grove. The last thing he wanted was for his noise to shatter her quiet. The storm was protecting them both, holding the outside world at bay. Tomorrow, he told himself, would find a way to help her that didn't involve corrupting the perfect, simple truth of her life. He drifted to sleep, the scent of the earth serving as his lullaby. The storm was an uninvited, powerful guest, and it refused to leave. When Cassian woke on the solstice morning, the light filtering through the massive glass dome was a weak, pearlescent gray. The wind still screamed, and the reports Eliza received on a small, crackling radio confirmed that the local roads were completely impassable. The power which had been flickering finally gave out, plunging the conservatory into a quiet darkness save for the emergency lanterns and the faint, natural light. The sudden lack of background noise, the hum of the heaters, the distant sounds of civilization made the silence inside the quiet grove feel profound and isolating. Cassian emerged from the potting shed, feeling strangely rested. The air was cooler now, and Eliza was already moving amongst the plants, checking the temperatures of the most delicate orchids in the terra incognita section. Good morning, Cassian, she said, her voice sounding crisp and immediate in the quiet. It looks like you're stuck with me for at least another day. The coastal road is entirely blocked. I don't mind, he replied, and the honesty of the statement surprised him. Usually, any delay of this magnitude would trigger an explosion of emails, phone calls, and high-stress problem-solving. Here, however, the problem was simply the weather, an opponent even he couldn't conquer with money or strategy. It was a forced surrender, and it felt strangely liberating. Well, since you're marooned, you might as well earn your keep, Eliza said, handing him a large, metal watering can and pointing toward a row of struggling cyclamen. You said you didn't know real patience? Let's start with a small lesson in care. These are fragile. Too much water, they drown. Too little, they wither.
Yes.
And so, the billionaire venture capitalist, who oversaw a global technology portfolio, spent his day learning the delicate art of watering cyclamen, hands in the earth cache, and worked beside Eliza, not as a guest, but as a silent apprentice. He was awkward at first, his movements too sharp, his hands used to keyboards and contracts, not the softness of damp soil. Eliza patiently showed him how to mix a fertilizer solution, how to gently prune yellowing leaves, and how to spot the early signs of rot. He learned that the conservatory's main furnace was failing, and the financial cost of repairing it was the core of Eliza's worry. The deep freeze the storm was bringing threatened her most sensitive tropical collection. He saw the genuine panic in her eyes when she checked the ancient temperamental boiler, then saw her swallow it down and simply start stacking logs near the structure to insulate it. He observed her meticulous care, the way she spoke to the plants, the deep reverence she held for every living thing. He was struck by the contrast between her work and his own. He built intangible things that made vast sums of money. She maintained tangible beauty that barely covered the electric bill. Yet her purpose was infinitely clearer. During a break, while sipping lukewarm tea, Cassian pointed to a towering, gnarled tree dominating the center of the dome. That one looks ancient. What is it? That's the anchor of the quiet grove, Eliza said, her voice filled with pride. A ficus religiosa. My great-grandmother planted it nearly 100 years ago. It's the heart of the place. We have to be vigilant, though. The roots are starting to press against the foundation on the west side. If I don't stabilize the foundation before spring, the whole place could be damaged. She didn't mention money directly, but Cassian calculated the cost of that specialized structural repair instantly. A minimum of $50,000. It was a devastating sum for her. A rounding error for him? You're fighting a monumental battle here, Eliza, Cassian said, watching the way her brow furrowed with genuine worry. It's a battle worth fighting, she replied, her gaze meeting his, earnest and unwavering. This place isn't just glass and dirt, Cassian. It's life preserved. It's my truth. I can't let it die just because a bank statement says I should. The shared intimacious evening approached. The emotional distance between them dissolved entirely. Sharing the physical labor-hauling bags of potting mix, wiping down condensation, tending the stubborn boiler, had created an unspoken intimacy. They prepared a simple dinner of tinned soup and crackers over a small, sputtering camp stove in the potting shed. The light from the single lantern cast long, dancing shadows, shrinking the massive dome to a cozy, shared space. Cassian found himself telling her things he hadn't admitted to his closest friends or family, the suffocating weight of his inherited expectations, the emptiness of a life measured only in deals closed, the terror that he was becoming, exactly the cold, ruthless man his father had been. Eliza listened without judgment, her head tilted, her green eyes reflecting the flame. You're afraid of the cold, Eliza finally said, not as a question, but a quiet observation. I live in the coldest industry there is, he admitted. Oh, she corrected him gently. I mean your spirit. You think success requires that you stop feeling things. But look around, Cassian. The greatest strength here isn't the heat we generate. It's the quiet tenacity of the life that endures the cold. You're not that man yet. You still feel the emptiness. She reached out and briefly touched his hand, her palm warm and earthy. You just need to plant something real in it. It's simple, touch and calculated, pure and warmed. Did more to shake his foundation than any business crisis ever could. He had been wooed, pursued, and desired by powerful women. But Eliza was simply offering warmth, genuine connection without demanding anything in return. The offer of the hearthy walked through the moonlit dome, the emergency lights highlighting the ghostly shapes of the plants. They stopped near a cluster of Christmas cactus. It's already beginning to flower in bright magenta and crimson. Eliza turned to him, soft light illuminating the sincerity in her eyes. I know nothing about your life, Cassian. I don't know where you came from or where you'll go when the snow melts, but these last 2 days, they've been the most real I've felt in a long time. You see my truth here? You see the struggle, and you didn't flinch. She stepped closer, her breath smelling faintly of tea and cinnamon. I don't have a lot to offer you. No fancy parties, no connections, certainly no fortune. But if you're looking for something real, something that will grow and last, I can offer you the quiet grove. I can offer you my life here. A life where the most important thing is simply the change of the seasons, and the chance to wake up every morning with soil under your fingernails. She was offering him not just her heart, but her entire world, a world of simple beauty, honest labor, and profound peace. It was the antidote to the poison he had been drinking for years. Cassian felt an overwhelming surge of love, not the superficial kind, but a deep, protective urge. He could buy her the new furnace, fix the foundation, and save the quiet grove with a single phone call. He could stay, and in this bubble, they could build a life. But the billionaire's mind, ruthless and pragmatic, also saw the future clearly. He saw the private jets, the magazine covers, the hostile takeover attempts on his company, incessant demands of his board, and the glare of the world's spotlight. He saw the way that harsh metallic light would instantly wither the delicate, pure bloom of Eliza's spirit and her simple, beautiful dream. He knew his world was fundamentally incompatible with her innocence. He wanted her desperately, but he wanted her peace more. He could not be the man who brought the cold, hard reality of his wealth and power to her quiet grove. He had to protect the garden, and by doing so, he had to protect the gardener. He took a deep breath, the scent of night jasmine filling his lungs. Eliza, he began, his voice rough with suppressed emotion, what you have here is precious. It is a kind of perfection, a kind of truth. He took a half step back, creating a space he knew he had to maintain. You've given me a rare gift simply by letting me see it. The words hung between them, a deliberate wall he was forced to construct. He had to choose between his immediate desire and her long-term happiness. He chose the latter. He would not take her heart and watch it wither in the noise of his empire. The snow finally ceased before dawn on Christmas Eve. The light that filled the quiet grove was crisp and blindingly bright, reflecting off the undisturbed blanket of white outside. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of dripping water from the melting snow on the glass dome. Cassian woke knowing this was the end of his brief, perfect isolation. The first order of business on any clear day was extraction, even without a working phone. His team would have implemented their high-level protocols and would be closing in by land. He found Eliza in the central tropical section, gently brushing snow away from the skylights with a long-handled tool. She looked up, her face serene, and offered him a simple, heartfelt Merry Christmas Eve, Cassian. He returned the greeting, the phrase feeling weighted with the gravity of his impending departure. He knew he had to leave quickly, before the simple truth of the last 2 days became complicated by the arrival of his real life. The snow has stopped, he stated, walking toward the potting shed where he had left his waterlogged coat. My team will be here soon. I have to coordinate with them. Eliza simply nodded, her moss-green eyes studying his face. I knew this was a bubble, she said quietly, her voice accepting, though a faint hint of sadness touched her tone. A place where the storm holds back everything but the truth. The final offer, Angelisa turned and walked over to a high shelf where she kept special cuttings. She retrieved a small terracotta pot wrapped in a piece of delicate hand-stenciled paper. Inside was a single, tender stem, carefully rooted, bearing 2 tiny heart-shaped leaves, marbled with silver and deep jade. This is for you, she said, holding it out to him. It's a very rare silver queen pothos, a cutting from my grandmother's original collection. It's known for its tenacity and its beauty, even when growing in the shadows. It symbolizes enduring hope and growth. Cassian took the small pot. It felt warm, radiating the patient effort of her hands. It was the most valuable gift he had ever received, surpassing the worth of any watch or artwork he owned. It was a piece of her life, her history, and her hope, Eliza. "This is beautiful," he managed, his throat tight. "I know what I offered you last night," she continued, looking directly into his eyes. Her sincerity, a painful cleansing force. "And I know you didn't answer. But I wanted you to know that the offer stands. Not for your name, not for anything you can do for the quiet grove, but just for you." I saw the man underneath the urgency, Cassian. I saw the man who needed peace, not profit. She took a final brave breath. "If you ever want to put down roots, even just one little root, you know where to find the soil." It was the moment of decision. The moment where he could seize the simple, beautiful life she offered. He could reach out, kiss her, promise her the world and the quiet grove saved and secured. But as he looked at the fragile silver leaves, he saw the inevitable destruction. He saw his life, the private security, the relentless travel, the demands of the media descending upon this quiet, fragile space. Her heart, offered so purely, would be exposed to the elements he couldn't control. He had to protect the precious thing she was, even if it cost him his own chance at happiness. The choice to preserve Cassian gently placed the cutting on the windowsill. He looked back at Eliza, imprinting the image of her earthy beauty and transparent honesty onto his memory. "Eliza," he said, his voice level and distant, the executive's shield slamming back into place. "You are right. What you have here is precious, and it deserves to be protected." He walked over to his coat, pulling out his spare, encrypted satellite phone device he had kept, powered down to avoid intrusion. He activated it, the screen instantly lighting up with hundreds of missed messages and alerts. He saw Eliza flinch slightly at the sudden intrusion of technology. "I have to go," he said, keeping his eyes on the phone. "Thank you for the shelter and the kindness." He paused, forcing himself to omit any personal declaration. "I will reimburse you handsomely for the expense and the time." "I don't want your reimbursement, Cassian," she said, her voice dropping. "I wanted your truth." "My truth," he said, glancing up, "is a complicated and difficult thing to carry. I wouldn't wish it on this place." He didn't offer a hug, didn't touch her hand again, deliberately ensuring the separation was sharp and clean. He knew if he let himself feel it, he wouldn't be able to leave. The unspoken contraction left the quiet grove without looking back. Walking out into the brilliant snow-covered landscape just as he heard the faint, distant sound of a heavy engine approaching, likely a specialized snowplow sent by his security detail, he was back in his ruthless world instantly. The first thing he did, sheltered in the back of the armored SUV, was not call his office or his mother. Instead, he accessed a secure offshore fund he used for deep anonymity. He initiated a substantial wire transfer to a little-known independent conservatory foundation, the exact sum needed to replace the furnace, stabilize the ancient ficus releases foundation, and secure the quiet grove's operational budget for the next 5 years. The payment was masked untraceable back to him, labeled simply as a Solstice grant from an anonymous conservationist. He was protecting her innocence and her dream from the corrupting force of his direct involvement. She would never know that the anonymous lifeline that saved her life's work came from the stranger, who admired her more than any acquisition. She would continue her simple, beautiful life, attributing the miracle to fate, or the spirit of the quiet grove. He held the small terracotta pot with the silver queen pothos cutting. It was the only thing he took from the quiet grove. As the SUV sped away, taking him back to the world of steel and noise, Cassian looked down at the delicate, hopeful leaves. He had rejected the offer of her heart, but in doing so, he had given her the greatest gift he possessed, the preservation of her quiet, precious world. He had chosen to love her by leaving her untouched and safe. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his soul, that the little silver cutting was the only real thing he would ever grow.